The Eighth Skill, From Effectiveness to Greatness, Stephen Covey. Subtitles by freebooksummary. Introduction. The eighth skill continues in title and substance The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, published in 1986. It is most useful to study the two books in combination, but the author has endeavored to write in such a way that the eighth skill can be read quite independently. The basic concepts of the 7 skills are repeated and reiterated here, but the discussion moves to a fundamentally different level. In the years since the publication of the 7 skills, the world has changed. The industrial age, in which man was of interest only on the material side as a tool of labor, and he himself was interested primarily in the material side of his work, efficiency and reward, has finally ended. Now man is becoming a precious resource, and motivation is becoming more complex. In this book, man is seen as a unity of 4 kinds of intelligence: physical, mental, emotional, social and spiritual. And motivation must address all aspects of the whole person. A person seeks opportunities not only to get the rewards he or she deserves, but also to realize his or her talents, follow his or her passion, and leave behind a noticeable mark. Accordingly, the eighth skill is summarized as finding your voice and helping others find theirs. The eighth skill combines the first 7: personal greatness, with the 4 roles of leadership, greatness, and the 6 disciplines of performance, organizational greatness. Each person is called to discover this voice within themselves, to become a leader who helps employees find that voice, and finally to discover and strengthen the voice of their team, company, family, or country. Go into the goal must be thoughtful and consistent. The author suggests different ways to use the book. Choose your favorite key thoughts from it and implement them, or do a chapter a month for a year, etc. Significant help is provided by the online community, where you can not only find additional materials, but also report on the completion of the assignment and receive a grade. That the book itself, thanks to many examples and tasks, is perceived quite interactively, and the desire to diagnose yourself and begin to recover rises from the first page. Chapter 1. Man in the Post-Industrial Era. Mankind has passed through the eras of gathering, farming, industrial production, and entered the information age. Before, man was regarded as a tool of labor. The worker was treated as a thing, commanded and controlled, and only material needs were satisfied to earn a living. Now, in the post-industrial era, the main resource is knowledge, intellect, human talents, rather than physical labor, materials, time, or energy. There are tectonic shifts in the organization of production and human life: globalization of markets and technologies, universal connectivity, internet, international cooperation, democratization of information, including in social networks, the opportunity to hear and be heard, exponential growth of competition, thanks to which quality requirements are increasing. Financial capital is being replaced by intellectual and social capital. More and more people are gaining freedom of choice, place of residence, profession, social circle. A free man cannot be an instrument of labor. Every worker of the modern era is a potential leader. In the post-industrial era, not only knowledge, but also intelligence, talent, and enthusiasm of a worker become the main resource. Motivation encompasses the whole person: body, mind, heart, and spirit. The essence of the eighth skill is to unlock this motivation in oneself and in others, both at the personal level and at the organizational level. However, the industrial era system is alive. We still tend to control and manage. This is seen even in the family. Employees are still considered replaceable. Only skills, albeit intellectual rather than physical, are valued in them. Management habitually uses the carrot and the stick, and companies retain a hierarchy, a bureaucracy of indicators. The depersonalizing approach spoils relations, undermines a person's faith in his or her own abilities. Ordinary employees do not feel that they are masters of their own destiny. The mismatch of new opportunities and human needs that the old forms of organization leads to acute frustration. Surveys show high levels of job dissatisfaction and low levels of engagement. A survey of 23,000 employees showed that only 37% of employees know the goals of their company, while 20% share them and see a connection between their work and the common goals. Only 15% believe that the company creates good working conditions, and only 10% believe that the company creates conditions in which employees are responsible for the results. 15% feel trust in the company, 13% have good relations with their superiors. A vicious circle is formed. Constant control reduces initiative and the management. Seeing the indifference of employees increases control. Extreme forms of such codependence are observed in totalitarian societies and dysfunctional families, but they are also observed in quite modern successful companies. Companies are improving performance within an existing paradigm, but the paradigm itself needs to change. This change happens from the inside out when a person finds his or her voice. Covey gives an analogy. Up until the 19th century, bloodletting was the main method of treatment. Doctors competed to invent more effective methods of bloodletting. Improvements came when the methods of healing changed. In the modern era, man realizes himself as a whole person for the first time. To live a fulfilling life as well as to function fully, all sides of the personality must be engaged and all four types of intelligence must be stimulated. Body intelligence uncontrolled by consciousness work of the circulatory, respiratory, endocrine system, the body's ability to heal itself, the instinct of self-preservation, bodily intuition. In the information age, the danger of neglecting the body health, leisure, is increasing. Mental intelligence, IQ, which now determines mainly the trajectory of studies and career talents, knowledge, sphere of interests, readiness for innovations, emotional or social intelligence, EQ. Many companies are also interested in this parameter of applicants. It determines not only the communication skills needed in negotiations and in relations with clients, but also the ability to build relationships with employees, involvement in work, interest and enthusiasm. Daniel Goleman's data on simple jobs. 1% of employees with the highest EQ are 3 times more productive than the average. On jobs of average complexity, 12 times. Spiritual intelligence conscience becomes the focus that defines a person. A whole person, and by analogy, a company is made up of body, mind, heart, and spirit. Each side of the personality corresponds to a specific need motivation. The need of the body is to live and grow. One of the main incentives for the employee is financial reward. For the company, financial performance, influence and growth. Need of the mind, to learn, to realize one's talents, to apply knowledge. For the company, having a coherent strategy, vision. Need of the heart, relationships with co-workers, feeling needed, love for your work, engagement. For the company, it is enthusiasm. The need of the spirit conscience, for both the individual and the company, to make a contribution, to do meaningful work, to fulfill a real need, to change the world. In the post-industrial era, the knowledge and communication skills of the employee are in demand, i.e., along with the body, also the mind and heart. But even if these sides of personality are satisfying, employees realize their knowledge, are enthusiastic about their work, good relations are formed between them, burnout often still occurs. The reason is that the main aspect of personality, its center, conscience, is not demanded. Personality is fully realized only when a person finds a cause that corresponds to his conscience. He finds and realizes such a need of other people, satisfaction of which his conscience demands. The 8th skill is to listen to one's conscience, to see the need, to realize one's knowledge to solve this problem, to receive sufficient material, reward, and emotional nourishment. 40 years ago, Muhammad Yunus discovered that many people in Bangladesh were earning only a few cents a day because they had to borrow materials and surrender their wares to a moneylender. Yunus created a bank that lends to the poor. Millions of people started businesses and moved out of poverty thanks to these banks. This is how Yunus changed the world. Chapter 2. Finding your voice and helping others find theirs. Man needs to realize his dignity, that is, his infinite worth and independence from external circumstances. Man can accept responsibility and manage his life by himself. For this purpose, everyone has 3 gifts: freedom of choice, natural laws, talents in all 4 aspects of personality. The post-industrial era is characterized by unprecedented freedom of choice for an unprecedented number of people. Not all people have had time to realize their freedom. Often a person feels himself a prisoner of circumstances, dependent on working conditions, boss, family members. He lacks education, he has a bad heredity or bad character. It is not always possible to correct the conditions of work, boss, or family member, but we can change our own reactions, and no matter what kind of heredity we have, including emotional heredity, e.g., tendency to anger or excessive pliability, we can control our reactions, even the most seemingly involuntary ones. There is always a gap between stimulus and response, and in that gap is our freedom of choice. Our first gift. The size of the gap varies, depending on heredity, upbringing, circumstances, stimulus, and exercises in self-discipline. But everyone has a gap. The second gift received at birth is natural laws. Natural laws principles are universal and self-evident. They have unconditional authority. We cannot violate moral laws without consequences for ourselves, just as we cannot violate the law of universal gravitation without consequences. Principles and values are not the same thing. Values are social norms. They are emotional and subjective. The values of a person, company, or society are not always based on principles. Values determine behavior, but the consequences, behavior, are determined by principles. Even a person who claims not to believe in the reality of right and wrong will resent being treated unjustly. Clive S. Lewis. The third gift inherent in every human being is the 4 kinds of intelligence. It is time to evaluate and prioritize the spiritual intelligence, that is, conscience. Conscience gives direction to all other types of intellect, understanding of the principles and meaning of life. Having realized his 3 gifts, freedom of choice, 4 kinds of intelligence, and natural laws, a person is ready to develop the 8th leadership skill. The 8th leadership skill is to find one's voice and inspire others to find their voice. Voice is a personality that is revealed in relationships with others and in overcoming adversity. It is the intersection of talent, enthusiasm, discovered needs in the world, and conscience. The 8th skill is achieving not only personal greatness, but also leadership greatness, and building a great organization, community, country, family. 7 skills, effectiveness, personal greatness. In this case, retain their value and are the basis for the realization of the 8th. Recall that the first 3 skills relate to the area of commitment and boil down to the formula: make commitments and fulfill them. Proactivity, not reactive, but free to make choices based on principles. The ability to see the end goal and pursue it. Consistency in prioritizing actions. The next 3 skills belong in the area of relationships. Build trusting relationships and involve people in decision-making. Not conflict and compromise, but win-win. Understand first, then be understood. Synergy, the sum is greater than the sum of the parts. The 7th skill is sharpen the saw, i.e., renew and develop in all 4 aspects. The 8th skill involves the coordinated use of all 7 skills, all aspects of a whole personality in constant interaction with others. The main difference of the 8th skill is that it is aimed not only at personal effectiveness to realize your needs and opportunities, interests, and the voice of conscience, but from the inside out, to help other people to open up fully, also to become leaders, together to serve the common cause. The 4th, 5th, and 6th skills are significantly activated. The ability to listen, to search for mutually beneficial solutions, to act synergistically. The 8th skill consists of 2 elements: finding your voice and helping others to do so. To help another person find their voice, one must first respect the inherent dignity of every human being, that is, to believe in their potential. This belief alone, if expressed convincingly, can be enough to help. Once on a train, Stephen Covey met a young man who had left home and tried drugs, but great strength was felt in him. And Stephen said, "In parting, I'm sure you'll leave a mark on the world." Years later, the man told Stephen that this meeting changed his life. He believed in his own strength and found his way. A key quality of a leader is the ability to listen. If there is any innate predisposition in any human being, it is the need to be heard. Our ways of listening can be placed on a scale from ignoring and denial to selective, attentive, and empathic listening. Listening empathically means taking the other person's side, understanding them from the inside out, uncovering their voice. Attention and interest are not enough for empathy. You need an attitude that encourages the speaker to take responsibility for being understood and the listener to take responsibility for understanding. The best way to listen empathically by listening, accurately state the other party's position. Sometimes this requirement leads to peace quickly. In Stephen's seminar, a young man argued by repeating his own thoughts rather than those of his opponent. When he finally managed to express his opponent's position, he himself was confused. So I agree with that. The leader does not seek triumph at the expense of the other or even compromise the outdated idea of zero sum. He seeks a third alternative, a win-win. In this case, 1 + 1 is greater than 2, not 1 1/2, as in compromise, and not minus, as in conflict. The third alternative leaves the plane of confrontation into another dimension. The husband, who had cancer, decided to build a greenhouse near the house. The wife was upset that the greenhouse would spoil the look of the yard. Finally, she realized that it was more important to her how her husband would spend the last months of his life, and she did not compromise, happily agreed to make her husband feel good. Both won. The husband lived another 3 years. Win-win is synergy, multiplication of forces in cooperation. The basis of synergy is trust. A leader who manages to earn trust and achieve synergy has quite realized the 8th skill. Trust is an emotional bank account that needs to be replenished all the time. The basic currencies are willingness to first understand, then be understood, fulfillment of promises, candor, courtesy, striving for a double win, and honest refusal if this is not possible, clear mutual demands, loyalty to the absent, the ability to apologize, the ability to forgive, striving for mutual understanding and cooperation. All this should be a personal initiative, not from the outside or from above. Having found his voice and gained trust, a person becomes a leader and can create his own team, strengthen the work of the company, direct it to the goal that corresponds to the conscience. Chapter 3. The 4 roles of the leader and the greatness of the organization. A leader's influence is provided by the trinity of ethos, pathos, logos, Greek philosophy of influence, ethos, the trust a person has earned as a person, competence, fulfillment of promises, pathos, understanding another person, empathy, logos, power and persuasiveness of thinking. A person as well as a team and a company gains voice, personal greatness when he or she reveals his or her talent in the work he or she loves. The work must fulfill the need of others that the conscience calls for. Having attained personal greatness, a person also attains the greatness of a leader by fulfilling 4 roles. Role model, moral rather than formal authority. Navigator, shared vision. Strategic plan, adjuster, aligning actions across the team. Inspirer, unleashing everyone's potential, giving freedom of action. To acquire moral authority, one must demonstrably exercise freedom of choice based on principles. That is, to hear one's own voice and live in full accordance with it, which requires discipline and dedication. This role of leader, role model, is not manifested on its own, but in the fulfillment of the other 3 roles. The navigator is the leader who is able to offer the team a shared vision of the goal and a strategic plan to realize it. This role, like the role model, is only possible for a person who enjoys both the personal trust of colleagues and high trust at the company level. The common task of both the moral authority and the navigator is to create the focus of a unified vision and create synergy. One must first find one's own voice using the 7 skills, then help others find their voice, the 8th skill. Affirm the principle of double win and synergy, and build the attitude influence on the basis of trust. The common task of the adjuster and the inspirer is to realize the mission. The adjuster helps to coordinate actions and relate them to the common goal. The inspirer supports self-confidence in everyone and in the team, helps everyone to reveal their potential. All 4 roles of a leader are performed by one person and are unrealizable in isolation from each other. The ultimate role of a leader: provide context, help find a voice, and step aside to create clear accountability and effective communication. Become not a leader, but a leader servant. Leadership starts with initiative from the inside out. A victim position is devoid of a future. When we shift blame and claim that we are not the problem, it is this outward posture that is the problem. Initiative is a manifestation of inner strength. Leadership is the result of choice. We choose our own level of initiative by going beyond job functions and expanding our circle of influence. The root problems of organizations arise from not creating the conditions for the realization of all types of intelligence and the satisfaction of corresponding needs. The most primitive variant is the failure to meet material needs, i.e., wages, working conditions, and recreation. Lack of discipline, the body suffers. Material needs are met, but there is no opportunity to realize one's talents, or there is no vision of the goal. Mental intelligence suffers. Poor relationships, controlling bosses, lack of trust, inattention to customers. Emotional or social intelligence is not realized. Employees do not see the opportunity to contribute to the common cause, do not understand the mission of the company. The company operates unethically. Spiritual intelligence problems. Organizational problems are chronic, but are usually noticed when acute symptoms appear. It is not the symptoms that should be treated, but the causes of chronic problems and their consequences, e.g. neglect of spirit, conscience, low trust, neglect of intellect, low corporate culture, neglect of discipline, misalignment, carrot and stick method, neglect of the heart, i.e. the connection between people, commitment to the common cause, lack of loyalty, looking for interest on the side, hack work. Each employee decides what part of himself to give to work. Behavioral options, depending on conditions and personal character, range from protest and destructive submission to voluntary consent, cooperation, commitment, and creative excitement. If the same is described in terms of initiative, 7 levels of initiative can be distinguished from waiting, to be told and asking permission for every action to suggesting options, reporting intent, reporting constantly, reporting periodically and doing independently and responsibly. The leader's task to awaken creative excitement in himself and in others. To achieve full autonomy of response synergy, there can be various combinations of negative factors in a company. But the answer is always the same: to become a leader, that is, to find your voice, and to help others find it. Go beyond your job description by acting in your sphere of influence. This requires not formal authority boss, but moral authority leader. The voice of the organization is the relationship of people for a purpose. Work is done together. People belong to an organization, a family, a circle, a community. The challenge for the organization and the leader is to build work and relationships so that everyone feels their dignity and potential for greatness and can invest their unique abilities and passion. First and foremost, vision. The realm of the mind is needed to recognize the needs, problems at hand and see opportunities to solve them. Without vision, only a passive path is possible, a reaction to emerging conditions. Filmmaker Lawrence van der Post said, "Vision is about going beyond autobiography. You no longer let the past determine your future." Realizing a vision requires discipline, the body. Discipline requires passion, the heart. Passion is the desire to realize the vision and the strength of conviction with which the vision is communicated. Passion supports discipline and is born when the need matches the talent. Conscience, spirit guides vision, discipline, and passion. Conscience subjects one to principles and service. Conscience does not separate ends and means. Conscience turns passion into co-compassion. It is again the ability to see other people. A seminar attendee told Covey about a grading question in nursing school. "Do you know the name of our janitor?" The students thought it was a joke, but the instructor reminded them that their future profession is to help people, and it's a good place to start by simply noticing people and taking an interest in their problems. The greatness of an organization is achieved through 6 driving forces: clarity of principles, purpose, and mission, identification with moral authority, commitment. The individual is engaged as a whole person, shared goals translated into action. Everyone's work is correlated to voice, enabling work, clear metrics. Third alternative, win-win synergy, mutual accountability of employees. A new approach is required in developing drivers. Third alternative, shared vision in a culture of trust through engagement, alignment of goals and systems. Moral and formal authority creates systems that institutionalize principles, delegation of authority and feedback, communication, support and reward systems should be designed to realize human potential and align with stated priorities. A company president could not understand why trust and synergy were not being established in his company. It turned out that there was a competition between managers all year long, and the top 30 were rewarded with a luxury vacation. In other words, the system encouraged competition rather than cooperation, and undermined trust in stated priorities and in the bosses themselves. At the intersection of personal greatness, 3 gifts and 4 types of intelligence, leader greatness for leadership roles, and organizational greatness, 6 driving forces. An active point emerges. The application of forces at this point multiplies synergy, human potential unleashed, and the results of overall performance. Conclusion: the change of epochs is accelerating. The age of gathering lasted hundreds of thousands of years. Farming lasted many thousands of years. The industrial age lasted only a few centuries. And the information age will be replaced by the age of wisdom before the eyes of several generations. All skills, and especially the 8th skill, will also be in demand in the age of wisdom. This is the time of the whole man, the renunciation of ego in favor of others, moral authority, and the rule of principles. from the current terra of wisdom will differ from the current terra of wisdom will be distinguished by the full embodiment of the 8 skills, the realization of all aspects of human intelligence, personal greatness, 3 gifts, and for intelligences and leadership greatness for roles will culminate in the full realization of the 8th principle, unleashing one's potential to help others. The primary role of the leader will be circus. Already a new image of the leader, the servant leader, is emerging in the literature. Jim Collins calls him a leader of the 5th level, a person who combines personal modesty and unrelenting professional will, shyness and determination. A moral ecosystem is formed around the leader, a moral authority. We see such examples in some companies and public institutions. At the personal level, wisdom is the victory over oneself, the ability to sacrifice what one wants now for the sake of a high common goal. At the relational level, overcoming ego, willingness to listen, building trust. At the level of organization, finding a third alternative that makes both parties happy. At the level of society, harmonization of cultural values with the eternal law. Thank you all for listening to the end. If you liked it, don't forget to rate and subscribe to the channel. You can buy the full version of the book at the link in the description.